Many people think that independence or just like entrepreneurship are for people who don't see risk, but it's not the case. They do see the risk, but then they try to do things to minimize that risk to the minimum that they can.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Unsafe Harbor podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking to Mahdi Kafi. Mahdi is an independent consultant in the Workday ecosystem and the founder of Turbin AI. Mahdi's been in the Workday space for about 7 years, and he's also been independent for the last 4 of those years. Mahdi is definitely someone to follow if you've ever entertained the possibility of becoming independent. He's super open about the best parts and worst parts of becoming independent, and he gives a ton of great advice for actually making the leap. I'll be sure to add a link to his company, his podcast, and his LinkedIn in the show notes below. Be sure to follow him and make sure you check out all of his work as well. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Mahdi. Yeah, I could go in so many different branches, but I think a good place to start would be, would you be able to walk us through your initial entry into the Workday world? So what were you doing before going independent? And talk me through kind of the initial stages of you entertaining, being independent, and then starting to make that leap.
Yeah, of course. Actually, I stayed at Workday partner firms for 4 years before going independent. And funny enough, at my very first job, Workday job at PwC, after a month, I got a recruiter messaging me for a contract. And I was like, oh, okay, so that exists, right? But I
Yeah.
wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I didn't even know what Workday was. I just got certified in HCM. I was still, going through all of the certifications, etc. And so I just kept going at PwC for 2 years. Then I moved to DXC Technology back when they had a practice. And that's where I felt confident in my skills. I think, and you can tell me about your experience, by the way. Like in my first job, I was a junior consultant. I was just doing some basic configuration. I wasn't understanding the full scope of a Workday project. And so at DXC, I kind of felt it. I was managing a small team at the very end. And then I told myself I had a few options after DXC. I would, go to another partner. I wasn't thinking about going to the client side. I heard I heard that it's more chill, more relaxed, and I was still, looking for many challenges. And so I had the opportunity to go to a partner or go independent. And at that moment, I just felt like, it was the right moment for me to go independent and try it out. In case I don't like it, I still had time to go back to a partner or a client and don't feel like I wasted time.
Yeah, for sure. Nice. So it sounds like you did a lot with specifically implementation, right?
Hmm.
And then you also dabbled a little bit with, did you dabble with post go live support as well?
I did a little bit with implementation partners, and now that you're mentioning it, one of the reasons why I was also more interested in independent life is that you could choose your projects. I'm not sure. Did you ever work at a Workday partner before?
No, no. So I'm currently at a client, and have
Yeah.
been with a client my entire journey in
Okay.
Workday.
Cool.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. 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 Yeah. Well, at Workday partner firms, you basically do the same project over and over and over again because you're so specialized in a few modules, so they like to use your expertise for projects.
yeah.
And so if you do that too long and you don't ask for promotions and for different roles, then it becomes redundant.
Oh
And that's
yeah,
the
I can imagine
position
that.
where I was in. Yeah, exactly. And so by going independent, I was able to go to the client side and then try post-prod support, optimization projects, phase X, and even global implementations.
Wow. Nice. Okay. So talk me through kind of your thought process for entertaining going independent,
Yeah.
and even talk me through kind of some of the things that you were most afraid about,
Yeah.
and then even starting to prep for that.
Yeah, I think for okay, so I don't want to, take all of the credit. I had a few people who went independent before me and who, I was regularly chatting with. I had two concerns before going independent is the frequency of getting contracts. I was too afraid of running out of a contract and then staying out of a job for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
That was my number one fear. The second fear was Actually, did I have a second fear? Yeah, I think the main one was the continuity of the job. Oh yeah, yeah, and also not being able to help customers if they ask questions, because when you're working at a company, you have all of these nice colleagues, you have other senior people you could ask questions to, and I was imagining that as an independent, I had to know everything, and I
Yeah.
didn't have that network anymore. Thankfully, by chatting with other people who were more experienced than me, who made the jump before me, they told me that you have this network of other independents, like you can find them on LinkedIn, or you have your little group. So that's one, and then the second one is the market was good back in 2021 when I went independent, and so they told me that I should expect getting contracts after contracts and not having that issue of waiting or running out of a contract. So at that exact moment, I felt comfortable making the jump. And then, funny enough, by the way, I think I never said this publicly, but I was getting married like 2 months after I made my jump,
Oh
and
my
so it
goodness.
was, yeah. And so even my dad was like, "Yo, you should get a
Yeah, just
job,
chill for a little
get
bit. Yeah.
married. Yeah, yeah, chill for a little bit, yeah." And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
yeah, and then you'll start to get to know me. I'm like, let me just try it and see,
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
And then thank God it went well.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow. All right. So I'm really really curious to know. I think we'll get into kind of some hindsight, right, and some advice that you would probably give yourself looking
Yeah.
back on this entire experience. Um, but talk to me about that first contract. What was it?
Hmm.
What were you doing? How did you
Yeah.
feel on like day one, week one, month one?
Yeah. I got my first contract maybe a month after I mentally decided to go independent, and I
Yeah.
hadn't left my job yet. So I started by finding the contract, and then I put my notice in.
Yeah.
When I started the contract, I rapidly understood that being independent for many, many, companies, it still feels like I'm a regular employee. It's just that my contract says, contingent worker and not permanent employee.
Yeah.
My very first contract, I was part of a team of, I think, 12 people. Out of those 12 people, maybe two or three independents, the rest were permanent employees. And so I felt that, I still had colleagues, I still had other people I could ask questions to. Um, and then for the first time, I think it was just maintenance. This client had went live for, since like 2017, I think, and we were in 2021. So we were just doing maintenance. Like if something breaks, I take it, I solve it. If there's a new initiative, if there's a new release, we would help with it. Um, so aside from the fact that I was a contingent worker, I still felt like I had colleagues, but the work was also very rewarding. It was very different from what I was doing at implementation partners, so it was great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Um, I could imagine though that you were probably horrified as well, just trying to figure out like, is this actually going to work? All that stuff, right?
Well, the contract started in September, and the end date was March.
Okay.
It was March, and so we were like in November, and I wasn't sure what to do because I had like 2 months left. And so again, because I had that network, I had a few friends, I asked them like, what should I do? Should I talk about extension? Should I look for another contract? And they basically told me to do both. And so because I had this network and I was able to ask questions, my stress level, I could regulate it, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, in November I was looking. Yeah, I started looking for a second contract. I also asked about extension just in the meantime before getting a final answer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm curious to know, right? And I apologize because we'll be jumping back and forth here in the timeline.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but right now, I'm assuming you're still doing independent contracting,
Yeah,
still doing workday work.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I like staying, relevant and not lose my
Yeah.
skills. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. What is the best part of being independent right now?
Uh, for me personally, so everyone has their reason. For me personally, is being location independent. meaning that most contracts are still remote nowadays. And I live in Canada. Most of my clients are in the US, so they don't really care where I live. And so if I want to go to the city next door because I want to visit my friend or my parents or whatever, I can do it. If I want to go back to the US because it's cold in Canada, I can do it as well. And so that flexibility was, one of the reasons why I was looking forward to going independent.
Yeah.
And that's the number one perk personally.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And I've also heard, I'm not sure how true this is, and definitely something that I wanted to pick your brain about. But I would imagine that you can really maximize your earnings by going independent. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. By going independent, you kind of forget about benefits, about job security, about like all of these things. And so because there are more risk, clients and companies are looking to reward you a little bit more. So the hourly rates
Mm,
are higher than permanent employees for sure.
yeah.
But the real opportunity is where you could take, one full-time part contract and then one part-time contract. You kind of decide about your work-life balance. Like I've decided, I remember like when I got started, I remembered that I wasn't interested in a work-life balance. And so I
Yeah.
took like a full-time and then a part-time. I was working like 60, 50 hours a week. Um,
Wow.
but then, you decide, like you get to decide to put yourself in that situation, and then you get rewarded because it's more money.
Mm,
You have
yeah.
this flexibility as well. And then I know an independent consultant who never takes any contract during the summer. So between June and August, like he takes off, like he's not looking for any contract. He just don't work, and then he enjoys the summer, and then coming back in September he takes one or two contracts and then make up for it.
That is
So
amazing.
so you
Wow.
can, yeah, you can really design your life the way you want.
Yeah.
But again, it's not for everyone. Like
Yeah.
just 2 weeks ago, I was chatting with another person who tried independent and then came back to partner side,
Hmm.
and his reasons were legit. He was like, I missed the continuity of building something with a team. So when you're independent, you're like working for 6 months, and then you jump to the next client, and then you jump to the next client. But then when you're in a company, you can build something. If the company is good and they give you the opportunity, right, and you get promoted, etc., you can really build something greater than yourself throughout the years, and you can meet you know a little bit more people, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's one reason to stay at a company as well. So I've been chatting with independents the last 4 years, and I have all sort of reasons from one side to the other. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just at a high level, what are probably some of the more popular reasons people end up going independent?
most popular reasons are making more money for sure,
Yeah.
uh, going remote.
Okay.
Um, and then the third one that I hear often is that they feel like they they don't have anything else to do at like partners or companies. Like they're not interested in those promotions and getting other responsibilities. They just want to focus on configuration. Like
Yeah.
like myself, by the way, I'm not like interested in managing a team, being a director, etc. I
Yeah.
really enjoy configuring absence and time tracking, and I just want to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and if you decide to do this at most companies, you will hit a ceiling and then it won't be fun. So,
Hmm.
people choose to go independent to have that fun instead.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are the top three reasons I would say.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, I'm sure it's not all sunshine and roses, right? What are probably some of the hardest aspects of being independent, in your opinion?
um, you, as an independent, you cannot just focus on working
Yeah.
and then going to sleep. There's all of this admin side, taking care of taxes, your LLC, getting a good accountant, lawyers if you're looking to, get insurance, etc. So that's one part that's not fun.
Yeah.
The other part is you really need to always be looking. Like you cannot relax. You always
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
like network and then, do the math. Like, okay, I'm working this contract may end in June, so I'll need to look for another one. And then, you always need to organize yourself so that you're always working if you care about always working for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then it depends on the company, but yes, the loneliness as well because
Yeah.
many of my contracts I'm the only expert and I'm helping maybe two or three people. These two or three people, they are a team. They talk, by themselves. They have their own meetings. I'm just here to help out, once or twice a week. So it can be lonely, but it is lonely at the beginning. If you chat with other people, etc., then it gets easier with time. You build your own network of independence, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the inconvenient, I would say.
Yeah. 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 It sounds like you're constantly having this conversation with people in the ecosystem, right? Like they're constantly picking your brain about like, should I make the move? Should I make the leap? Should I not? Um,
Yeah.
do you have like a pretty good understanding when you're talking to these people of like, yeah, you would do great, or like, it's probably not for you?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Usually I spot people who are, I don't want to say ready to go independent, but people when they talk to me and then they give me their reasons why they want to go independent, I tend to feel if those reasons are legit and true to their heart or just like a facade because maybe they
Yeah.
don't want to overshare or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but it's weird. I couldn't pick the right words to put it, but like
Yeah.
you just feel it. You just feel it. It's sometimes I meet people with 10 years of experience and they tell me they don't feel ready.
Yeah.
Versus others with 2 years of experience and they say, I look forward to going independent.
Yeah.
So it's not about the skills, it's not about the experience. It's a mindset where you are, and then
Yeah.
you get to decide, and then when you're in, you're in, and then you
Yeah.
decide if you want to keep going or go back.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later down in the conversation, but it really does feel like there's a massive aspect of ownership.
Hmm.
Just like you said, right? So some of the less glamorous aspects of this is the fact that you own everything, right?
Yeah,
The work, the administrative, the legal, the benefits, all of that stuff is on you to figure out. It's not on an organization to figure it out for you, per se, right?
yeah,
So yeah, I would imagine that like that is a pretty great characteristic to have when making the jump is like, are you okay owning all of this and being proud of that, right?
exactly. There's one more thing, by the way, now that I think about it, is you're the you're the number one responsible of your reputation. Like one wrong move, and then you just burned one client and all of their network. But
Yeah.
if you make a wrong move at a company, the company can help you, get through it. Say, oh, he's junior, or oh, let's try something else, or they can assign another consultant, put you on another project because it's tough with this client.
Yeah.
When you're independent, like one wrong move and you're you're done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also they can cut you at any moment. At a company,
Wow.
you're protected, with laws depending on your state or your country, etc. When you're a contractor, they can cut you for whatever reason. They can wake up one day and say, we no longer have the budget, so thank you for your services.
Yeah.
And there's no emotions to it. It's just business. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's this risk that I forgot that is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's
Yeah.
kind of wild. So I appreciate that. I think especially in the Workday ecosystem, I don't know about you, but it definitely feels just intriguing, man. I think we're all getting those calls, all getting those contract
Yeah.
positions, and you know, for me at the moment, I'm pretty content where I'm at. But there are moments where I'm like, wait a second, how much are you?
Yeah.
Right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll never say never, right? But yeah, I think it's always so intriguing to know what it's like to actually be independent. So you've drawn a
Yeah.
really great picture of that at this point. So
Appreciate it.
now let's say that there is somebody who is wanting to dabble in this, right? Or in a
Hmm.
very similar position to you earlier in your career of, you know what, let me make this leap now because I still have time to jump to the partner side or client side again if needed.
Yeah.
For anyone who's thinking about potentially exploring going independent, I know that you've talked a lot about this on your podcast, which I would highly, highly recommend people to go check out.
Appreciate
And
it.
I'll link it in the show notes for everyone as well. What are the top things that people should consider or think about before even like quitting, essentially, right? Before making the
Yeah.
leap.
Yeah. Many people think that independence or just like entrepreneurship are for people who don't see risk,
Yeah,
but it's not the case. They do see the risk, but then they try to do things to minimize that risk to the minimum that they can.
yeah,
For me, you shouldn't be leaving your job before getting your first contract. Your first contract should be at least 6 months is great. If you can do like 12 months, that's even better. And then, an emergency fund, as I like to call them. That's exactly what I did. I think I had maybe 5 months worth of, emergency funds just in
yeah,
case.
yeah,
Um, I found my first contract first. It was a 6 months contract. And then when I found it, I gave my notice, and I even, signed all the papers, making sure that, the contract is happening before putting in my notice. Depending on where you work, I know that you cannot do that in an implementation partner, but
okay,
on the client side, I've seen people, ask their manager or whatever to reduce their hours so that they can have a part-time contract at the same time as their full-time job just to try it out. It depends
yeah,
on your relationship with your manager and your company, but there are multiple ways, and it's any person can find some way to make it work at first,
yeah.
and then when you're fully ready, then you leave your job, you get your first contract, you start looking for your second one, and then you start rolling in your progress.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously making sure that you lock in that contract, right? Ideally,
Yeah,
somewhere between 6 to 12 months is your recommendation. Emergency fund, at least a couple months, right?
yeah,
I would imagine that there's a lot of administrative aspects that go into this as well, right? So can you
yeah,
talk about the administrative aspects as well?
yeah, of course. Oh, so okay, that's a good story. So actually, actually, I took the interview for my first contract without even having an LLC, having nothing set up, right? I told myself, let me lock in everything, and then I'll do all like I'll actually pay to get my LLC opened, etc. I didn't want to pay for nothing,
Yeah.
and so I took the interview with a recruiter. I passed, and then I took the interview with the hiring manager. I passed. Then they said a verbal yes. I was okay. Then I got the offer letter. I signed, and then when they asked about like all of the company setup, like my bank account information for payments, etc., then like I called one of the lawyers I knew, and I was like, "Yo, can you open an LLC? Like, I need it like yesterday."
Oh my
and then
goodness.
and then it
Oh
took a few
wow.
days, and I remember the recruiter was bugging me like every day, like, "Hey, can you send us your information? Can you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, give me like one more day." And then finally, I got like all of the information, all of that banking setup, and then I sent it over, and it all worked out. Also, I was a bit lucky because the start date of that contract was like for another month, so it wasn't like ASAP. So I still
Ah,
had
okay.
some leeway there.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So yeah, LLC setup. I'm assuming like a business bank
Corporate bank
account as
account,
well.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
These two things, and then depending on the client, I think you should always be insured, but some
Yeah.
clients don't care. Some other clients, they do require it. So, but that takes literally like an hour. Like you submit it
Okay.
online and then you get it.
Okay. Nice. Talk to me a little bit about the contract, and I apologize for this question if it sounds a little bit naive because I truly
No,
do not know.
no. Go for
How
it.
do you know when a contract needs to be revised? Also, another question that I have is talk to me about how you interact with these clients. Are you doing
Mhm.
that just between you and the client, or is there a middleman, a third party here involved?
Yeah, most of my early contracts had a middleman, so staffing
Okay.
agencies or recruiting agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like for actual work questions, you don't typically chat with them, you chat with the client directly.
Okay.
Anything related, to the admin side of things, like the contracts, the rates, etc., you chat with the staffing agency.
Hmm.
Um, does that answer your question? I forgot the second
Absolutely.
question.
Yeah, yeah. And then talk to me about the contract as well, especially if like
Yeah,
a recruiting agency is involved, right? You're signing
yeah,
the contract with them, I'm assuming.
yes. Okay, this is very important. Let me give you the two type of contracts that you can get when
Yeah.
you go independent. You have one, and this is something that you'll understand. It's not written. Okay.
Okay.
There's this contract with those clients who wants you full time or part time, but it still feels like a job, meaning that you're there, you're supporting them, you do some extracurricular like training development, other type of meetings. You're not just configuring. Those contracts I really like because you tend to have a better relationship with the client because you stay with them longer. Those contracts tend to get extended again and again and again. I know people who've been extended for like 3 years
Oh,
because those,
wow.
yeah, because those contracts feel like a job, but it's still a
Yeah.
contract. So that's the first type. The second type are very niche problems that you need to solve, and this is a very short-term contract, 3 to 6 months, and then you just move on to the next client.
Yeah.
The best ratio is to have one client who needs your support year round,
Yeah.
and then a part-time contract with clients who just need you a few hours here and there because they have issues that you need to solve.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that you need to understand when you're, chatting with recruiters. If it's one category, number one, number two. Number one, it tends to have multiple meetings. Number two, less meetings, so that you organize your week. Um, and then on the contract side, you're signing the contract with the staffing agency, but it's pretty standard, nothing crazy. The only thing is, there's a this waiting period where it's legally you cannot just go work at the client side. There's you need to wait 12 to 24 months depending on the contract before having a relationship with the client. But that's pretty usual. Staffing agencies, they need to work as well, and so that's the only thing to keep an eye out. But then the rest is pretty standard.
Yeah. Yeah. There's literally so many different branches that I can go in. But I want to double click on something that you just mentioned. Um, I know that you personally mentioned that you like to stick to contracts that are related to time tracking and absence and configuring
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
How do you know where there's a demand? And also, how do you know where you may be able to fill that demand as an independent in the space?
So you mean how do I know if there's any absence in time contract?
Correct.
Or
Yeah. Like, how do you know that people are looking for that? If that makes sense.
oh, okay, okay. Um, I think the market, like Workday, is doing good. So as
Yeah.
long as Workday is doing good, everyone will be doing good, me and you.
Yeah.
And so with this reality today, it may be different in a few years.
Yeah.
Today, all of the Workday customers, they have multiple modules, and if you know more than one module, you tend to be known as an expert at these few modules, and then you tend to be called for those modules specifically. So this is related to one thing that I keep saying to consultants. Don't say that you're a generalist. Don't say that you do HCM. Don't say that you're like techno functional, whatever. Say that you're a XYZ expert. So whatever, like a compensation expert, absence time tracking expert, benefits expert, because you build that personal brand on LinkedIn, but also with recruiters and with clients. And so next time that a recruiter hears about an absence and time contract, they'll think about me first and they call me first
Mm,
versus
yeah.
the generalists. Um, so to answer your question bluntly, like I don't know if there's a demand, but like for the last 4 years, because I built this brand that I'm an architect in time and absence, people have been just calling me. And then now I post on LinkedIn about these two modules more often. And so
Yeah.
people ask me questions related to those modules, more
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually really love that about your LinkedIn and other people's LinkedIn as well, is that you all are definitely branding yourselves as the experts. And it's really like personally inspiring, because I'm still
Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, I'm still relatively young in the space, and I'm looking to people like you and in order to try to figure out exactly what direction I take my Workday career.
Which modules do you configure, by the way?
So I'm going to say this on air, and I will probably look back on it and regret it. But I would definitely describe myself as very, very techno functional. Like
Okay,
I
okay. So
I
you
am
do integrations work and also a few configurations across modules. Okay.
absolutely, yeah. If I had to
But
pin
which
myself
one,
down, yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
which one do you prefer? Which one do you prefer?
That's hard. Probably the integrations, but just by a hair.
Integrations? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
I love code. I like can't get enough of it. I like code in my free
Nice.
time. Yeah, yeah,
No way. Okay, cool. Okay, okay. Well, let me tell you this because this is a great example.
yeah,
So, if you were to go independent tomorrow, I think that because you enjoy integrations, you could label yourself as an integrations consultant. However, you'll see that many clients will hire you for your integration skills, but because they like you as a person, they'll try their luck and say like, "Hey, Christian, I know that you worked on this integration work, but do you know compensation? We have this issue." And then
yeah.
if you're like a good person or someone who wants a little bit more, you say like, "Yes, I can look at it," and then you can help out with multiple things. But then to get your step in, you need to have that expert
Yes.
branding.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what's been happening to me the last 2 years. I
Okay.
always like step in as the absence in time, and then they ask me like, "Hey, do you know payroll?" Yeah, I do. Do you know benefits? A little bit, but I can ask around and I can help you as well. So
Yeah.
that's how you develop that relationship with the client and then stay longer because you can solve more of their problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So expert in the eyes of recruiters and
Yeah,
clients at first, right? And
yeah,
then that could slowly turn into generalist, especially if you're
yeah.
looking to extend that contract, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And clients
Interesting.
will love you for that because you'll be super valuable because you
Oh,
can help them
absolutely. Yeah.
across modules. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would imagine that that is the case because I would hope that the organization feels this way as well. But I feel very valuable to the organization here.
Yeah,
And so I would imagine that I would also be valuable across other organizations in the
of
ecosystem as
course.
well, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that is so so fascinating. So how do you feel about consultant work moving forward? I'm not sure if the market is still hot, if it's starting to slow down, if it's picking up. What are your
hmm
thoughts on the future of consultant work?
Um, so I have a very specific opinion about
Yeah,
it today.
yeah.
Uh, I feel like the Workday ecosystem right now, I think that Workday has saturated like all of the, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. So that now they're looking at, mid-market and emerging markets.
Yeah.
And so because of that, you have all of these companies that already implemented Workdays, the last 10 years, and now they're left out with, maintaining their tenant. Not all companies are great at building internal Workday teams that
Hmm.
can handle their tenants, and so they need to rely on consulting firms, on staffing agencies, etc., to build out, that external team to help them, right? And because now there are so many independents, there are so many experts versus in 2015, you're seeing an emergence of a lot of boutique firms. So those little companies, 10 to 50 employees that are doing a better job at understanding the client, at giving that customized solution, that customized customer service versus the bigger Workday partners that I will not name. And so there's this shift in consulting where clients are looking for more customizable solutions, more customer service, and it's even more based on relationship versus, oh, like I take this one because they're the bigger firm and they have the biggest reputation. And I love where it's going, especially with my firm because we're helping clients with that as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it's totally logical where
Yeah.
it's going.
Yeah.
But for people who are listening to this episode, I would love to hear about their feedback as well in the comments, and then I'd love to hear your take on it too.
Yeah. 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 I think I am. I'm really, really interested to see where this thing goes.
Hmm
I have a very similar sense that there is just an oversaturation kind of happening. Like we've kind of hit that
Yeah.
mark. And I can also see definitely on the client side that we still rely heavily on AMS and our partners, and we
Yeah.
don't use any consultants at this point, but or independent consultants. But we definitely rely heavily on our AMS providers to assist.
How big is your team internally?
So we have two full-time Workday people, and we
Okay.
have a handful of like subject matter experts across our shared
Okay, nice.
services who will chip in and help out every once in a while. But just myself and my manager that handles the
Nice.
entire
Okay.
thing. Yeah,
Cool, cool. Okay, perfect. So yeah, yeah. I think your category number two of clients, category number one are the big like 10, 15 Workday experts
yeah,
in-house.
yep.
How many employees do your organization have?
So we have around 2,700.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the companies with like 10 people, they are like 10,000 plus, so
Oh
that
yeah,
makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense then.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I can definitely see where there's still a need. There's definitely still a need on our end, but I can also see where there's just a lot of people going independent,
Yeah.
and it would make for a super competitive space, right? I think across the board, though, Workday skills are still highly in demand, and
Yeah.
that's just kind of a wash a little bit. So it doesn't even matter that it's oversaturated
Hmm.
in the independent space. Like people are still getting contracts, people are still getting paid, and it's
Yeah.
still like a good decision no matter what. Um,
Yeah, we knock on wood so that
yeah,
it
yeah,
keeps going this way.
exactly. So you alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I know that you are heavily involved in Turbin AI.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to talk to me a little bit about what that is and what your goal is there?
Yeah, of course, of course. Okay. So I love this question. So when I went independent, I started, working as an independent, and
Yeah,
then I started developing this relationship with clients where they would ask me for other modules expertise. And so I was kind of doing the job of a staffing agency, I would say. Um,
yeah,
but I was doing all of these things manually, trying to find consultants on LinkedIn, reaching out by email, trying to set up interviews by phone. And then I didn't enjoy my experience with a lot of recruiters, being ghosted, didn't know where my application was, getting the interview, but then no feedback. And so I thought about developing a solution. I I am a big fan of marketplaces. I'm not sure if you know Upwork, Fiverr,
yep,
all of these marketplaces. There is a marketplace for anything today, but there wasn't for any ERP. So for Workday, for Salesforce, SAP, etc. Like if you wanted work as an independent, as an SAP consultant, like you couldn't go somewhere and find contracts. And so I was like, you know what? Like, let me create this marketplace, and that's
yeah,
how Turbin was created. And so Turbin is a marketplace where Workday customers or partners can just log in, put out their contract requirements, and then find consultants who are available to take on those contracts. Um,
yeah.
I've been working on this project for the last year, and it's going well so far.
Nice, nice. So, I would imagine that you're getting a lot of demand from the partner side of things, from the client side of things. Um,
We're
are
working
cons-
with we're working with customers more. It's just I think it's been a month or two where we started focusing a little bit more on the partner side. I think
okay,
that we could add a lot of value there. But for the beginning, we really focus on getting the best consultants we knew on the platform.
yeah,
Um, but there is this ambition where we want to train consultants at being independent, even training on workday skills. There's so much to do in the ecosystem where we could add value. So just excited overall
oh
about it.
man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, is this training something like taking on somebody who's like even just entertaining going independent, and just making sure that they have the skills to meet the demand of the contracts that you're getting?
Yeah, exactly. I've seen this model already where one senior consultant is paired with a junior consultant, and then there's this teaching going on, and then this junior consultant can become really, really good in a short amount of time.
Yeah,
We want to enable that in the near future.
Yeah.
where we could add even more consultants on the market, helping more customers. So that's the aim.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I definitely look to you as kind of the expert on all things independent contracting. Who would you like to see kind of take the dive, take the leap into being an independent contract, right? Like what's the type of person that like should be looking into this?
Uh, for me, there's one type of person, a person that feels like there's no next step at the company that they're currently at, um, meaning that they look at their director, their manager, or their partner, and they tell themselves that they're not looking at that specific career path. I
Yeah.
think for these kind of people, they should try independent. That's one other career path that they can try out. The only difference is that independent is very quick. You have quick feedback. Like you can try it for 6 months and then you can come back to your life. But if you stay at a company going promotion after promotion just to see if you like it or not, it takes years.
Yep.
And so for me, independent is a very small experiment and it can yield amazing results. It can, you know, teach you a lesson if you like it or not.
Yeah.
That type of person, I think I would recommend trying out the independent life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, someone who can maybe stomach a little bit of risk and maybe 6 to 12 months of their time, right?
Yeah,
Um
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
that is really
it's
interesting.
it's crazy how, and I feel it's logical to think this way, but now that I've lived it, for me it's not logical. So
Yeah.
let me explain. So someone who says that, I'm afraid of going independent, I'm afraid of like all of these contract requirements, I'm afraid of not finding a contract. Those are very logic and very, very true.
Yeah.
But there's this fact of you can try and go back to a job. Like you can easily explain that during an interview. You can even keep your contract and then look for a job so that you don't, have a pause. There are so many ways, but most people, including me, can be scared about this, going and then coming back. They feel like it's going to be the end, and then they'll be homeless afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. Like I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like just being in the ecosystem, it almost doesn't even matter in what
Yeah,
context. You're fine. We're
yeah,
fine
yeah,
here,
yeah.
right?
As long as you have the skills, like it's maybe maybe some people listening, maybe they would say differently now in 2025 because of all of the layoff and it's like the market is not 100% stable. But like in general, if I take the last 4 years, like you could have tried independent and go back to a job pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually really love the way that you frame that. It is just kind of a big experiment, right?
Yeah,
And one that you can't really lose anything from. Like maybe
and
some time. Yeah.
yeah, and in your resume, it could add something or it can do nothing. Like if most recruiters, if they see a gap because I don't know, you took a 6 month vacation, maybe some recruiters would see that as bad. There are even, mothers that I know that had struggles coming back to work after taking like 2 years because they had a kid.
Hmm.
But if recruiters see that you went independent and then you came back, that's like nothing. Like it's
Yeah.
not something that they see as bad.
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of make your point here, I've been client side for the last almost 3 years now. And in those 3 years, I've been able to come in at a decent like pay rate. And I still, even then, got promoted and got like a really generous pay bump.
Nice.
I can see the advantage though of having to have the pay conversation every 6 months, every 12
Yeah,
months. Like that's
true.
locked in. That
That's
is
true.
locked in. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
this is a
I
very good point because
yeah.
as an independent, if you're going through staffing agencies, it's very hard to renegotiate your rate once you tell it once. So yes,
Oh wow. Yeah.
so yeah, there is this conversation where in a permanent job, you need to chat about salary every 6 months, every 12 months. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
forgot.
Yeah. So I do want to land this plane here because I know that we're running a little bit close on time.
Yeah.
Um, just generally speaking, I think you have such a great perspective on the entire ecosystem. So again, very generally speaking, if you could point to one thing that you're most excited about
hmm
for the ecosystem, what would that one thing be?
Maybe it's gonna be cliche, but I'm very excited to see all of the AI features that Workday will be releasing in the next few years.
Yeah.
We're an AI first company as well, and so we look forward to, adding that part in the
Yeah.
ecosystem. But Workday itself has so much data, has so much potential that I just look forward to, what they can do with all of these data and all of their models.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too, man. You
Yeah,
are preaching to the choir there.
just
I cannot
just
wait.
the Workday assistant is very first level, but like
Yeah.
it's really nice.
Yeah,
And so yeah, again, looking forward to what they can do.
for sure. Yeah. And then I'm really curious to hear your response here. If you could offer any piece of advice to someone who's just looking to further their career, what would that piece
hmm
of advice be?
Man, that two pieces of advice.
Yeah.
One, develop an expertise around two, three modules. Like become known at your company for these two modules because they'll follow you for the rest of your workday career, I would say.
Mm,
And then even when you're locked in to those modules, don't forget that Workday is a unified solution and you need to understand all of the links through these modules. And that will position you as an architect and it will help you either get promoted, get higher positions, or go independent even more easily.
yeah.
So that's my take.
Yeah. I love that. I love that a lot. Um, Awesome. I cannot say thank you enough, man. I was looking forward to this conversation like for weeks now, so I appreciate you making the time. Last question
Appreciate the
for you
invite.
before yeah. Last question before I let you go here. What's the best place that people can connect with you?
Yeah, of course. LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. So, connect with me, tell me that you listen to this episode, and I'll
Yeah.
accept you for sure.
Yeah.
Um, that's my number one spot. Second one is, I have a podcast that I'll invite you to as well. It's
Yeah.
called Ask an Expert. You can find it on YouTube as well. And aside from that, looking forward to having more workday conversations.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, and I'll definitely get all of that linked in the show notes. So we'll make it super easy for everyone listening.
I
So,
appreciate it.
Maddie, I really appreciate you, man. Honestly, I am so pumped, and I am looking forward to future conversations as well because there's just so much that I want to get out of that brain of yours. So I appreciate your time, man.
Of course, I appreciate it, Christian. Thank you for
Yeah,
the invite and
yeah.
looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. Be sure to check out the helpful links and resources mentioned in the conversation in the podcast show notes below. Also, be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter to stay in the loop about future podcast episodes and workday tips. I'm Christian Delcid on LinkedIn and at cdelcid21 on Twitter/X. I would love to hear any feedback about how to make this podcast better, so be sure to subscribe, connect with me, comment, and share with others. Thank you so much again. Have a great day. The Unsafe Harbor podcast is my personal passion project, and it is completely separate from my role with my current employer or the Workday organization. The ideas expressed on this podcast are my own and do not represent my employer or the Workday organization.